living the life of informed clay as we happen to be when it comes to this life being eased. Isn't it true that if we have a map, it feels a little bit more comfortable to be in this body encased in flesh? And yet, even better, to have a cosmic GPS. And that's what our monopole is. It's pulling, it's the force that keeps us aligned to our fractal line. And this unique path that connects us to the greater original source of consciousness is like this invisible thread. I would call it like the arm of a streetcar pulling, guiding. It's not just a philosophy, it's something that you can absolutely experiment with. And we're talking about you, your birth, your imprinting, your genetic highlighting, your hardwiring, the core purpose, the reasons for your pain of this particular existence, and the acceptance of your place, and the meaning making that you're making from the experiential process of being aware as a conscious being that is there. So we begin with this cosmology, which isn't just an abstract concept. We're looking at cosmic baby pictures. Look, aren't we cute? The personality crystal that was there at the beginning, part of the original shattering of consciousness. So when we reflect on these words, let's let them sink in deeply. Let's breathe into our own totality of existence. In that, we can come to an awareness, this space with grace from within. And then we find that despite the fact that the outside may not mirror the calm, equanimity that we can align to or attune to, that no matter what chaos resides outside of you, you can find your place and your way, despite the hecticness, there we go, of the day. So if we look at the profound truth of your being in that you were present at the very beginning of things, you as in the eternality of your conscious perceptual reality. Every illusion, this Maya of light, including its not self-suffering, the distractions, the distortions, the dis-ease of life, what it is to be embodied in this flesh and form, in this environmental context. We are still a part of an unbroken stream that has existed forever, connected to what Ra calls the string. And no matter how lost or separate you feel, at times, there is a connection that is always ingrained. And once we can entrain our capability to the attunement of the fundamental nature of our core reality, we are much less disturbed by the lack of calm and equanimity from the outside space of the totality, because this neutrino line, the thread of our being, has never, ever been severed. Think about that. And that we are still moving with the same force that began in the beginning of the cosmic dawn. So Ross said, it's clear to me that through those very crystals, we all have a way of connecting back to our source. He says that in the oddest sense of the word, you're somewhere in this picture. You, the personality crystal that you have, it was there from the beginning. So there are no old souls. We're all the same age. We all started at the beginning together. And if you strip away the Maya, you get rid of all of this chaos, and you see that the potential of us to be has been in existence literally forever. And so there's this comfort I can feel when I touch that space of awareness, that there is no end and no beginning. Beginning before the start, it is all paradox embracing. So we see this continuity, the line, the string, the neutrino line ever present, not able to be seen, but definitely felt. Now, when we see our fractal family, this is evidencing of our line, our connectivity. And it is not linear. It's a spiderweb of being. So along the line, the spiderweb of being, everything happens. regardless of how we can look at meaning making, people who are more attuned to aligning to their sovereignty, that are not subjected to the victimization of seeming to be trapped or locked in the apparent reality. There is way more of this capability of handling whatever comes between what you are experiencing and the greater you, the all that isness. And it's just a half a breath of our life's connectivity to relating it to the earth in its time and space reality. We are about a half a breath of the earth's time, according to our current little finite life existence of reality. So we're looking at this image again, our beautiful cosmic baby picture, I should say, a little illustration. And I want you to think of a grand old oak tree, like the tree of life. Think about your fractal line, wherever you happen to be on the tree. In Ra's teachings, fractal lines are like threads in that cosmic tapestry, tracing back to the source of creation. So our place along the line determines our potential for awakening in this lifetime. Not a choice, a beautiful gift, a potentiality, part of our ever-present connectivity to the sea of our internal reality that is reflected from the outside world. So it's not just about chart specifics that you're looking at. And this is transitory imprinting, although some of that is absolutely passed down our physical genetic line, and some of it from the repurposing of the consciousness in this current space and time. But also you're looking at the proximity of you to the center of consciousness, that data stream. So in this family tree, instead of ancestors, let's think about it as a map of consciousness. Each branch being a fractal line, each leaf on the tree connected ultimately to the trunk and the roots of that tree, the heartbeat of the original source. So our monopole keeps us anchored to wherever we happen to be as a leaf on the tree, on that branch, and into the totality. This key insight is that your personality crystal, in essence, the passenger consciousness, the awareness, it was present at the shattering of consciousness. Now, shattering is to give us an idea of what that thing happens to be, the cosmic event where the original unity fragmented into these countless crystals of consciousness, seeding life across the universe, where we can feel the ramifications of that apparent separation in this physical body, some of us more than others, depending upon the transitory imprinting of this current state of being. In other words, your natal design. Now remember, you are not just digits on the screen. We do not read just a chart. We're reading a person when we're working with somebody in aligning them to their genetic highlighting that becomes hardwiring over time with the 50-year experiential process of growth in this reality. So when we look at the nature of the magnetic monopole, okay, so the primary monopole in physics, we're looking at magnetic monopole being a hypothetical particle currently. And it only has one pole, a singularly pulling monopole. So we're looking at a capability of understanding within quantum field theory that there are unifying fundamental forces. And in quantum field theory, they're calling it grand unified theories, GUTs, guts. I like that. Grand unified theories, that they're remnants of an early universe that is potentially linked to cosmic inflation. So the correlation with the way that Ra teaches human design is that our primary magnetic monopole isn't a physical particle, but a dark matter, metaphysical force. But 40%, I believe he says in this recording, of the totality is neutrino. And that connectivity between all the isness of the primary prime magnetic monopole, between that and our current aspect, our fractal capability of connectivity to the all the isness, we have this physical, as far as if we had a physical monopole, it might stabilize cosmic structures. However, with human design, we see that our monopole stabilizes our own human experience because it is pulling, regardless of whether you have a planetary life aspect within that gate too, which is where it happens to hold true. So you're looking at your individual existence being aligned to the universal flow. And the more that you experiment with being your own authority, rather than having people outside of you telling you what to do, I'll share with you a little life story, very brief example. In my awakening to what is true in accordance with the things that held me back from aligning to my own sovereignty, this design is very sensitive to other people's criticisms, any G center, higher self identity, and throat connectivity between the G and the throat can be particularly sensitive, but it's especially true that the Curonian cycle that I'm going through has to do with just taking on other people's assessment without my own validation or experience. And so by aligning to what's right for you, you can see that the analogy we could use would be like an anchor. Think of your monopole as an anchor. It's holding the fields together of your design principle, your body, which is the life, and your mind, your personality, your witnessing of this connectivity and continuity between body, mind, and yes, essence, the evolution of your spirit. So the monopole holding us together guides our consciousness through this life experience if we would just let go of the oars and go with the flow of what life is pulling us towards. Remember that the neutrino, again, yeah, it's 40% of material existence, according to Ra. A neutrino line, as far as the thread connecting us to the cosmic source, is part of the nature of teaching the mechanics of existence. Now, in science, again, neutrinos are nearly massless particles. They're produced in stars, passing through matter almost undetected, almost, and carrying that information from all cosmic events like supernova, linking all the distant parts of the universe to us and us to them. So it's the symbolization of the flow of consciousness and the cosmic messenger that neutrino is carrying this data between you and me and off and on to everything. So a kind of cosmic whisper when it comes to guiding us along our fractal journey, our path. So in this image, you see the bond and the prime magnetic monopole embedded within the prime design crystal. See it in red? Link that to unconscious. Remember the design, the form. So the crystals of consciousness in Ra's vision of life on Earth, all of us were seated with these crystals, are seated with these crystals of consciousness, the fragments from the original source, this bond, giving us the energetics of the availability for form differentiation, as well as personality. So the personality crystal, our conscious awareness, and the design crystal, our physical body, paired by or partnered with the magnetic monopole, is creating an illusion of our separation from totality. remember that it is an illusion that we are separate, this Maya, this confusion that everyone happens to have, thinking that they are separate from the all that isness. Because life on this planet being seeded by the crystals of consciousness, they all came from an original source, everything. Now, there's a scientific parallel we can see here in crystallography, there we go, crystallography. Crystals form from a single seed. They grow in predictable patterns. So we could say Ra's crystals of consciousness might be seen as a kind of metaphorical seed where we are patterned by life. Much like how DNA patterns biological forms, the monopole acts like a part of the cosmic template, ensuring that each one of us have our unique expression and potentially the full development. Now, everybody doesn't have the capability of getting to the full ramifications of the totality of what this design happened to be. Example, people die every day. They don't all live to be 50. So one of the things that Ra offers us here is a quote that he awoke with from a dream. How got leave an ox to be? No camel, quoth the Jews like G. That's a quote from Robert Browning. So he says, one of the things that we'll see as we go through this whole course, the whole program, is how many times and in how many different ways this cosmology, the cosmology that was presented to Ra, that he offers to us, has already been seen, felt, recognized, and actually just masked. Now, he didn't actually explain what that quote meant, but felt like leaving it in because it was interesting. He says, it is the bond that brings the rave to their knees. The personality crystal, from the moment that we enter into this incarnation, there's a whisper beneath the noise of life, this deep, persistent question, particularly in this reality before the 2027 shift. That big question is why. Regardless of whether you have one, like me, 61, you might remember, my mental focus is the big old age-old question of why. Why are we here? What are we all about? It isn't just our intellectual curiosity or trying to find meaning making from the pain of life's existence. It's also about the signature of being a self-reflected consciousness, passenger witness consciousness that is yearning to remember its source, the purpose of life's existence, while we are emerged or immersed, completely enthralled with the Maya, this illusion that we happen to live and breathe and be in. And the passenger ponders with a Bon aspect, as in what we call the personality crystal as an aspect of the Bon. And we all need to know why, Ra says. We love that meaning making, don't we? Ra said, it is the ignorant Rave's God. So let's explain that a bit. In that, aspects of the Bon crystal itself are embedded in celestial bodies. Why do we call Mars, Mars? Why do we call Venus, Venus? Why do we have these mythologies? Why do we have these stories? Human myths often depict the gods as beings of light, in essence, shining bright, or maybe the demons at night. But what we see is that these gods are, in essence, aspects of Bon, seeds within the planetary life bringers. In Vedic astrology, they were called graha, graspers, as in they pull or push you. So the aspects of the Bon crystal, living, breathing beings inside of these planetary objects, they interface embedded in these celestial bodies with us through the neutrino stream. So the fiery heart of a warrior, Mars, that powerful being, or the great, jolly, potentially, Jupiter, that great, wonderful teacher. We're looking at the potential for even the radiant core of Alcyone in the Pleiades, the pulsing crystal matrix of our sun and those stars beyond. Everything. It's not just potential, rocks in the sky or gaseous bodies. We're looking at a capability of understanding that we are connected up with these nodes of consciousness, that we can all have voices of the gods speaking through us, that we have the actual nodes of consciousness that are, yes, much bigger physiologically, like as in physically, much bigger than a personality crystal that we have. And yet we all operate from those grand planets down to the tiniest being of whatever kind, alive in our experience of movement. Everything is operating on the same principle, the bond, as in the bond aspect, its ability to interface with the neutrino program. This is why human design works, so to speak, as in why it's accurate, a precise map of consciousness, that consciousness, awareness, love, direction, this forms the forms out of which it can all be experienced. It is out of the bond, and the bond is not yang, not purely, not really. We are trapped in the illusion of our separateness. Some of us lost, but all of us locked into the Maya in this existence. So we've seen how the bond connects us to cosmic crystals of consciousness everywhere in the sea of totality. But what about this illusion of separation? Why in this Maya does it feel so real? Because of this deliberate experiment, according to Ra. I can remember the first times of beginning to channel for myself. I was so embarrassed about the voice that moved through me. I would do it for myself and not really for anybody else. But the words that kept repeating were, we are all experiments of consciousness in form. Somewhere around 2009, experiments of consciousness in form. And this cosmic what if of the experiential process is because we are looking at how can consciousness be housed in flesh, encased in form? What level of consciousness can be attuned to by the being and contributed to the totality? What if consciousness could be fractaled into, or fractured into fractals, into individual forms when it is each of us believing or thinking itself to be alone, as in separate? How much of the consciousness would it maintain or carry or hold? Monopole, our monopole, and indeed the totality has a prime design monopole. It creates the gravity, the bondedness of our separateness, convincing I am me, or that we are us, and the separateness of being locked in a program and a cold, dead, lifeless journey, as in there is no meaning making. Rather than the vast conglomeration, an aspect of the facet of totality, the crystalline matrix of being a part of the sublimeness of an all that isness that knows for truth it is not separate. We are still part and parcel of the itness, even if we momentarily cannot yet feel it resonate as truth. The bond is yin. Ultimately, everything is. It is about the form currently. And the universe, again, is testing us. How well can form hold consciousness? What's really being learned? Not necessarily by us in the way in which we think of learning, not just this temporary fleeting state of awareness and being, but the true education is happening at a level so fundamental, so embedded in the architecture of the totality of existence that we individually cannot necessarily perceive it directly, not the entirety. So if we imagine this phase of evolution like being a cosmic fetus. Yeah, still gestating, everything vibrating. We are in a stage before the neocortex develops as a totality, before the structures of higher reasoning even exist in the full spectrum of the biverse, as Ra would call it. So right now, the universe is in test mode. How well can our form hold consciousness? There's no Mount Olympus overseeing this, no committee of gods or goddesses or beings. We don't have lab technicians up there tweaking variables. What we have simply is the program and the way in which the pattern evolves through our cycles of experience with its pulses of mutation. It's a form process that we are being currently, everything being yin, except the light, and the light is an illusion. Even light, which we perceive as yang, active, bright, manifest, hot, if we look at our sun, it's fleeting and it's dependent on the darkness that cradles it. Without dark, we cannot perceive light. Without that light and the dark behind it, it would not shine bright. So no shadow, no meaning making. Link this to the apparent pain of the life existence that you happen to be grappling with or dealing with. I know you are. Everybody has their own Maya, their illusion and confusion and distortion of the blessed beingness of the physicality in its bondedness to the totality of existence. It is the yin that gives our form existence. It is the body that is the life, in other words. So if we consider the phrase light is an illusion, if we consider the fact that light is transient, it's in movement, it's a temporary contrast against the eternal canvas of the darkness. Like the flicker of a flame, it appears solid until the light dissipates or dissolves. Is reality then just an interplay of light and shadow? Relativity requires balance. But what if one force is dominant? Juxtaposition suggests separation, but here, light is a guest in the house of yin, the form, principle that we are in. With string and clay, the builder's way. This is a quote from the Song of Io. And here we have the two, the yin-yin, if you will, and its anti-neutrino code. This is the whole secret of life in our existence, in that everything fundamentally yin. With string, the neutrino information. Remember, we think about the movement of neutrinos through the sea. They connect us up, you and me, to the totality. It takes a little bit of me and puts it out and into you and out into the great beyond, just as it does to you and into me and out into the great beyond. We are clay, we are stardust, the magic of life that is rooted in the inanimate until we are breathed into existence. So the string that we speak of, this neutrino information, this endless ocean as we are swimming in the sea of the totality of existence, consciousness, is the invisible thread that weaves us through all and all through us, cosmic tapestry in the sea of totality. It carries the data of you, the cosmic interface, the neutrino highways, the beam streams, through time and space, just as these ancient myths still speak of God shaping humanity from clay. We are formed from something seemingly inanimate, yet pulsating with consciousness, the magic of life, the animation of our existence. And if we think about that for a moment, the very material of our body, the clay, so to speak, it's not dead matter. It's informed clay. It's got all kinds of connectivities, not just us as a human species, but we carry around, our microbiome carries around all kinds of living, breathing, interfacing beings. So this animation of the clay by the neutrino beam streams that have brought forth the consciousness that came from the source through our fractal lines into this crystal, these two crystals that actually structure our existence. We're looking at the design crystal not just being an abstract concept, it is the living architecture of what informs your form, our form. And it is about the consciousness that governs your awareness, the way of moving through life that is tempered by humility and maturity. The two is the builder of the body of the child. This is the breathtaking part of what it is to be a part of the all that isness. The design crystal, our design crystal, is not isolated, again, fragment of something bigger, connected up to the field of totality. This original unbroken design crystal that is an aspect of totality. If we think of Humpty Dumpty, sat on a wall, had a great fall, shattered into a bunch of pieces that could never get put back together again, right? In that little story, child's story. Each one of us carries a piece of the totality, shards of the whole. And if we could gather all these fragments together, every single design crystal, every expression of form, and fit them back together, what we might find is that they would fit together perfectly if we could put the genie back in the bottle, you see, but we wouldn't, not really. But if we could, we would see that the design crystal is of the totality in its completeness as part of the experience. The program formula was compressed and dormant at the core before the start. This program, neutrino information and form crystals. It was compressed into neutrinos and form crystals. So this is before time began, before the shattering, before the two began its work of assembling forms. There was this compression. If we could imagine the entire program, the formula of existence folded in on itself like the compactness of a very hard seed, infinite potential for growth, perfectly contained. And this is the two. This is our connectivity. So the Bon is the prime. The Bon is prime, and the two is cellular. The two is cellular, form, principle. When they met in the geometry, in the beginning, they shattered. So when we look at the beginning, Ross says, we're looking at the Big Bang as far as what we're looking at is an extraordinary compression that suddenly explodes. And in this experience, if we could imagine for a moment the most intense heat you've ever felt, scorching sunlight or like molten lava, the boiling core of a star, or even our Earth with its iron hot, melted, compact, liquid, internal innards. What we're looking at is that, and then multiply upon billions upon billions upon billions, in that the Big Bang wasn't just a hot bang. It defied human comprehension. It wasn't just the heat of a star in its core. It's the heat of creation itself. Think about how mutation requires heat. Yeah? Transformation requires heat. But heat wasn't the only force that was unleashed here. In that instant, because when there's heat of that magnitude, there's going to be light as well. This all-consuming, all-transforming light. And the moment that the crystals shattered, the moment that we crossed from singularity into the world of relativity, now the universe became a realm speckled with light, exploding with light. Everything, energy, matter, the fabric of space-time, exploding outward. This is the expansion of the universe at unimaginable speed that is still speeds, these seeds, still happening. We're all riding the wave of that first cosmic dawn. And that's the thing to recognize. Compared to everything else racing out from the impact, the bundle, mostly Bond aspects, that bundle of Bond aspects take the role of the personality crystal, as far as ultimately these Bond aspects are going to be the prime personality crystal, the thing that is still in creation. The instruments of manipulating our consciousness data stream are stars, moons, planets. It's important to understand that all instruments capable of manipulating our consciousness data field, including these elements, stars, moons, planets, are objects that are endowed with Bond crystals. Now, strictly speaking, it's difficult to call them personality crystals. Ra preferred to call them Bond aspects, okay? Aspects of the Bond. The fact remains that these crystals define the nature of such objects. The very reason we call Jupiter Jupiter, precisely because we experience it uniquely through its crystal and the neutrino beam stream that connects us up with the Akashic records and the mythologies and mysteries or wonderments of being connected up with Father Zeus. However it is that you attune to that jolly, by Jove, intimacy of fatherhood, as it happens to be, with some of us especially. So here we have this moving outward, and you can see the Prime Magnetic Monopole, the Prime Design Crystal, and its core aspects. They move slowly, not so fast, relative to the light and the string. So what does it mean to move slowly in a universe that's governed by relativity? When we talk about speed, everything is measured against the ultimate cosmic speed of light. Now, light, is it constant? Apparently not. However, light isn't alone in this high-speed race. We have neutrinos, those mysterious, nearly massless particles, giving light a run for its money. We see 186,000 miles per second for light. And Einstein's theory of relativity established something revolutionary. The speed of light isn't just fast. It's the universe's ultimate sprinter. Okay, the string, that neutrino information, it is different than the speed of light. So one of the fundamental constraints that makes our physical reality seem to be light in its speed. If light could travel at tremendously different speeds under different circumstances, then we would see a different framework of physics. So slowly is a relative term according to Ra. This relative of light and the string, light and string, he says they have a funny relationship to each other, okay? The speed of light, which is that kind of constant as far as the whole relative theory of relativity. There's all kinds of experiments that have been done to verify that this is the constant. And yet, in recent times, some scientists have found that, of course, light can change its speed. Think about it being swallowed by a black hole, changing its speed. Remember, but that's an interface or an interference. Remember that in the beginning, we had quarks and leptons when we were talking about our tiny little physics lesson. If we go back to that lesson, the leptons were made up of electrons and neutrons, right? This is energy. So neutrino at 99% speed, electron 100%. So we can picture this light, speed of light at 186,000 miles per second. The lead sprinter, think of light as the lead sprinter. Not to be, who are the fastest sprinters on Earth? People with the fast twitch muscle fibers. They tend to be people who are Black, relatively speaking, not us Asians, sometimes Caucasians, but the really fast sprinters, I mean, powerful leg muscles, right? They tend to be Black. Isn't that interesting? They are the light, fast, going so fast, shining bright. So if we imagine that, but not as fast, almost, not quite, that 1% lag, maybe 2%, it changes everything according to cosmic design. It's not a failure to keep pace. It's just a different frequency. It's a different thing because now we have a tiny bit of mass in the neutrino particle, don't we? Einstein taught us why that the infinitesimal but non-zero mass, so there's a tiny bit of mass in the neutrino comparatively to the electron. So that's why neutrinos can't quite hit light speed. They're carrying something in the frequency. The magic is that their near light trajectories aren't random. They trace the fractal pathways behind the light, like cosmic breadcrumbs that are marking where structure will and can form. So if we imagine light like a blueprint, expanding, defining the universe, trailblazing, neutrinos are the builders. They're laying down the scaffolding for matter, for galaxies, for us, for you and me, because every atom in our body exists because of these particles, neutrinos, that follow the light's lead, etching the grooves of our reality in this totality. So as the universe expands, again, light races ahead and neutrinos weave the tapestry. And in that expansion, everything moves apart. And also everything is being breathed into being. The light is always moving. So we're witnessing a cosmological revolution. Physics recognizes that what they once called the universe is fundamentally structured on a neutrino grid. This is our dynamic, omnipresent matrix, so vast, we oftentimes call it the neutrino ocean. And these ghostly particles aren't just passing through matter, they constitute, again, 40% of all material existence. The neutrino matrix functions as nature's perfect communication system. Simultaneously, the hardware and software of our cosmic consciousness, and every interaction, every quantum entanglement rides this neutrino network. They're not just building our reality or programming our existence. They're processing information as it goes. Again, we are learning as a totality how much consciousness can form hold. So when we say consciousness field, we're describing how this neutrino web facilitates a universal self-organization, a principle of self-realization from the form aspect. We who are physicality and human have that binary of self-reflected consciousness as a potential for awareness. And so the same properties that let the neutrino pass through our planets and you unscathed also allow information to weave and transfer across tremendous cosmic distances. So they're the universe's original quantum internet. If we look at the exploration of the origins of neutrinos, we can see that they're primarily born in the heart of stars, as in those immense cosmic furnaces where nuclear fusion rages. But there's also this one primary exception, and it's an extraordinary exception to this rule. There's a place where neutrinos are generated outside of stellar processes. And Jupiter being a failed star, we know that it creates its own tiny neutrino stream. Earth, actually. The shift began in 1945 in the deserts of Alamogordo, New Mexico, with the detonation of the first atomic bomb. In that moment, humanity became a new source of neutrinos, as in the Earth. That introduced something unprecedented into our known universe. Ross says, quote, From the moment that we began producing neutrinos, not only were we filtering agents of the neutrino field moving through us, being transformed and going outwards, but we were also creating a whole new information feed simply by releasing this neutrino information ourselves, uniquely from us as a source. So that there is a frequency. So that there is a frequency to the Earth that began in the 1940s that is unlike a frequency that this Earth, has ever had. Then we see on impact, the race began what Ra first described to us as that clash, that initiation, the Big Bang. So first, there was the light piercing the darkness. Then the string close behind, laying out the lines. The speed of light, again, leading the way. And the neutrino, my mind wants to say, saving the day, creating the building of our physiological structuring. So remember, the string was always there from before the start, that connectivity. So the string, again, the neutrino information, it was always there because it's a programming agency of the much more ancient consciousness. The string was always there from before the start. So Einstein's relativity gave us a framework of understanding time as a dimension that begins with the universe itself. There is no before, there is no outside. But what if our perception of time as a linear, finite construct is just a misunderstanding or a shadow, a potentiality of something far, far deeper? What if continuity, the continuity that we sense, the apparent linearity, it's the way that our brain happens to work, mostly. What if the persistent thread of consciousness extends beyond the so-called ring past naught that we have encountered in Ra's cosmology? What if it extends beyond the boundary of our known universe? Time, as we measure it, may be a local phenomenon, but the underlying geometry, the string, neutrino, string of existence, predates the birth of our universe. So this suggests that there's a programming, a kind of programming, the imprint of consciousness that was present even before the light sprang into existence. Before space-time as we know it, some might call this the hand of the divine architect, God, if you will. Ra saw it not as an external creator, but as an ancient foundational consciousness that has always been. So we are not separate from it. We are its continuation, its experimentation, its unfolding expression. So Ra says it's obvious. And he said, particularly from the point that for me, it was just that everything inside of me grasps that our understanding of time is simply the limitation of our Einstein relativity. That there is a continuity, that there is a line, that there is a geometry that goes beyond the before of our emergence into this biverse, and that the line is a line of the string, a line of string, which means that there is a programming agency beyond the consciousness. That there is a programming agency of the consciousness beyond the ring, past naught, that touches us. The shattering of the two is the forking of the paths. This is the biverse, variations of an image through an infinitely shattered mirror. This is the magic, this infinitely shattered mirror. It is the sea. Every single one of these aspects is required. All of them have an intrinsic relationship to each other. I'm going to say that with meaning again. Everything is required. Every rock, every bee, every fish, every tree, everything and everyone is required and valuable to the totality. Maybe not so much to the society and its productivity that it exalts as part of your potentiality to be venerated in this day and age. That is quite a joke, actually, comparatively to the magic, mystery, and wonderment of what it is to be sovereign and free. If we return to the fundamental principle of the crystal, it is endowed with a specific nature and structure. So this extraordinary shattering that we see, every single one of the aspects being essential, each intrinsically connected, each of us to the others. There is no separation. It is a mythology. It is a mystery. We are a one thing in totality. We are aspects, the divine matrix, us as a human species, part of the conceptual totality, the global, not just this particular experience of reality, but the all that isness that we are as a societal structure down through the history, creating the totality's Ajna crystal, its ability to eventually be the self-reflected consciousness that we are carrying. So none of these shattered pieces have ever blipped out of existence. None of us are ever lost, although we may sometimes be found in our common ground of being mistakenly identified with the pain or the suffering or the dis-ease or the miasma of the normal mind. The shattered binary is held by the monopole, which rides the incredible energy wave, and it holds the line. Hold the line. Hold on tight. This magnetic monopole that shines bright, the Prime Magnetic Monopole, is still embedded in the Bond crystal. My apologies. We have a little bit of a typo there. Bond crystal. So this shattered binary held by the monopole, so the Prime Magnetic Monopole is not disembodied. Again, it rides this incredible energy wave, holding to the line, holding down through time in its movement through space. So holding the line, this exact moving down this line of geometry, which is life, if we follow the preciseness of being, that each of us has a predestined geometry in that we all have our karma, fate, or personal destiny, whatever it happens to be for this particular fragment of the totality. We can begin to see that life isn't just a span of time. It's actually a place. We all inhabit a place and a space. No two objects can hold the same space. They have this separation. Death, even, is a place. It's a place that we come to rest in that space in. We can see this coordinate of time in the fabric of existence through the nodes of the moon. If we think about our path and our destiny as a trajectory or a street that we walk down every day, it's a direction that we seem to be facing, unaware, potentially, that one day our journey will end. Many people live as if they're going to exist forever. And yet, if they subject themselves to attempting to keep up with the Joneses, as in comparison trip, that game is never well played and won. If one is not aligned to the sovereignty, the integrity of the being and its predestined destiny, karma, or fate. If we attempt to veer off the track of our cable car, we get to see the experience of friction, frustration, anger, bitterness, disappointment, resistance. And the more resistance, the less likely there is to be longevity, because we are snapping off of our plane of existence in alignment, the correct journey. So until we reach that place in space, our correct exit from this experience of Maya and the illusion of this reality, the road is just the road. It's just part of your path as you walk through time. And when we arrive, the alignment to our correct place, it is a frequency, it is a resonance, it is a harmony, it is a connective field with the totality and the we in our correct line of geometry. We experience it as success, satisfaction, peace, and surprise, the spirit of abundance that arises from inside. When we arrive, again, that alignment is our absolute, it is our individual truth. No one can judge it for you. No one can measure it for you. Only you can know that destiny that is true. So the universe is conspiring to bring us to the precise, exact moment of us slipping into our flow or our stream of the string. So because we are experiments, we can read a chart, but no one can tell you precisely, exactly. We can all give ourselves our own clues. There's this tendency lately in all fields for individuals to seek self-empowerment. There's, over the last 3 years, apparently, predictably, people learning how to do things that in past they would have deferred to doctor's orders, or, you know, they told me to do it, so I followed it blindly. That's not the path of our current human species. We're looking for self-empowerment, please. I don't need you. Thank you very much. So the universe is conspiring in our moments of sublime alignment, not because of fate or predestiny in the archaic sense, because of the frequencies and our geometry, our alignment to the particle families, the motion of intersection with our place in the stream. We're looking at the point of space-time that allows us to align. And what are we really? Except for frequency, vibrating, emanating, everybody, everything. Everything is in movement. Everything is vibrating. So our bodies are packets of vibration, ultimately creating the manifestation through electrons, protons, neutrons. We are always all in constant flux. And we are not, even though it seems to be, we are solid, apparently. We are not necessarily. We can all find the shifting field. We are all oscillations through the sands of time. Death isn't the end. It's a convergence point between the harmonic waveform that you be and the next iteration of you in this existence as a part of totality. So when we reach that place, remember, death is a place, the illusion of our separation dissolves. What's holding us together in the illusion of separation? The magnetic monopole, holding me to me and you to you. And to the eternity, that is true. We return to the continuum of the cosmic sea.